This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, this is Joe Rabil, going to give you a stock market update. So what I want to do is start out with the market conditions. Like to go through these. I think it's great for people to track these on their own and then compare to what I'm seeing. One of the things I really want to talk about today, though, is the fact that we've gotten a rally back to the highs. And the question becomes, is this a topping pattern where we're going to go back down, or is it turning back to the upside? Okay, I want to address that today and tell you how I'm feeling about it. We're going to use the smaller time frames to help determine that, but we always want to anticipate a little bit, and I'm going to tell you how I'm anticipating. Let's go ahead and get into that. Now, if you want to learn some of these techniques, especially related to multiple time frame trading using MACD and ADX, I would suggest starting with the book. I'm offering it a discount right now. You can go to rabilstockresearch.com/book for more information. And also, if you do like the content of this video, please hit that like button and also subscribe. Okay, we're going to start with the sentiment. It has moved up some off the recent lows. So I'm leaning towards, I moved this back to neutral. I don't, anytime we're in the 30s, depending on the direction we're coming, where we are, I'm not seeing this as being as a positive anymore. I also don't necessarily see it as a real negative. So it's sort of diminished in my importance right this second. And from an overbought oversold standpoint, we're 65%, but I also don't see this as being anything all that important. The RSI 5 is kind of jumping around. It moved up from a low in a pretty strong way. Yeah, it might work its way back down to 50 again, but I don't see this as a big overbought reading rolling back down at this point. All right. Now, just quickly, in terms of the trend, monthly, weekly, still positive. The daily is at neutral, getting very close to turning positive again. And the momentum conditions, monthly, weekly, are positive, and daily is at neutral. You could really have flipped this back to positive based on what the MACD is doing and the fact that the green DI is holding. I'm just waiting for a little uptick in the green DI to kind of make a little more of a confirming sign. I'll show you that in a second. All right, let's go ahead and start going through these. So we've got this daily volatility that has switched. All right, the daily 18. This is the average true range, and that is dropping. You can see the drop after it got going to the upside. We've gotten a pretty good drop, and now this line is rolling over. So I really think we're at a point now where we can flip this over, right? We can look at this more positively. And what I'd really like to see is this RSI 5 on this time frame to come down a little bit more, at least close below 50. And that could happen really pretty quickly here, possibly on Friday. Today on Friday, we could get a drop, and this gets a little bit more pronounced to the downside. As long as we don't see anything significant in terms of the size of the bar, we're going to be meeting these up together. Price and the 18 are going to be meeting up, and this is going to be working off overbought, and this is going to be rolling over. That's a good setup, all right? And then on the weekly, though, I think it's a little bit different. We've gotten a lot of strength to the upside. I still view this as a negative. It's just too volatile. So it doesn't mean that it can't keep going. It's possible this could, maybe just have a little bit of a check back and then turn back to the upside based on what the daily is doing. And if that's the case, this might keep dropping and roll it over. But right now, I'm favoring more of the, trades where I'm managing off the daily versus trades where I'm managing off the weekly. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, then I would suggest taking my courses. The last course goes into this in detail. Okay. I do want to switch over and go through the different time frames. So first of all, we're getting close to ending the month. We got 1 day left for this month. All right. And look at what this has done. We had a big drop and we formed this massive, massive tail. That's a really good sign of support, especially if we can close something like this. If we have a really bad day on Friday, then this might look a little bit different. But I think the odds are pretty high it's going to close in the upper end, upper half of the bar for the month, and likely going to close above this 4 MA after being well below during the course of the month. So I think that's a pretty good sign of support underneath. All right. Now, no matter how we're looking at that, we are still a little stretched away, but we have really good momentum characteristics associated with that. I don't see anything that scares me when I look at the momentum, really. So I would still consider this positive from that standpoint. Let's look at the weekly chart. Here's where it gets a little tricky because we have this reverse divergence in place where the MACD has come down. Now, if you notice, we're still pretty far away from the zero line. This isn't happening, it's sort of late in the process, okay? The good news is green has recovered. It's gotten back above the red. It's back above 25. So it gives us a little bit of room where this could have a pause week next week. As long as it's not real violent and we check back a little bit more, this really could set up for upside continuation. Now, during that process, I do want to see if we get a drop in the volatility. But overall, just looking at the trend and the momentum, I think this is still in pretty good shape. Now, I do want to point something out because when we go to the daily, I'm going to show you the opposite of this. This is our third higher low that's forming. Now, we haven't finished the week yet, but pretty good chance we're going to create a third higher low. But look at how the MACD is below its signal line. So I refer to this as a potential pinch, right, with room down to the zero line. But we also have reverse divergence taking place. So what wins? What's the answer? Well, the way I look at it is I think we have to look at the size of these green bars and how we recovered 100% of the decline. All right. So we could get a pinch to the downside, but I don't expect it to have a lot of follow through. We could easily come back and check back to the 18 potentially. But in terms of looking at a pinch play that reverses the pattern and breaks it down, I think that's very, very unlikely. All right. I would actually love to see a little trigger to the downside that gets us a little closer to the 18, causes the volatility to drop, and keeps this green DI above 25. If we can pull that off, then this could set itself up for another leg to the upside. Now, I'm asking a lot of this market. I think the higher probability is that we're going to form some kind of a range. So we just got to keep our eyes on this stuff. But what I'm telling you is that we've got two counteracting signals on the MACD. It doesn't always give us all the answers. So you got to go and look at what you're seeing on the smaller time frames to help with this. Now, this is the main time frame that's helping me with my decision here. In terms of, is this a rally? So is this basically a rally into a top and going to roll over? Or is it a rally that's a pause and getting ready to break out again? Well, as I've said, from a short-term standpoint, on the daily chart, I like what's going on with the volatility. The other thing I really like is we had a really violent decline and it immediately, abruptly reversed back to the upside and erased that decline. All right, that's point one that I think is very, very bullish. Anytime you have a violent decline and you erase it, 100% of it, you have to respect that there's probably somewhere in here is pretty strong support. All right. Now, point number two, we've gone up against the high. Now, this is pretty violent. Look, we had a gap down there, another gap down there, another gap down there. You've had people left behind. And what I mean by left behind, they were left kind of holding the bag. They bought here. Remember, to get the stock, to get this market to go up, there had to have been buyers here. Well, they got caught and they didn't really have an opportunity to get their money back until now. If you notice, the strength of this rally is just causing a pause. The volatility is dropping, okay? It is not violently turning down. So when I see a strong move to the upside that causes a pause, I'm usually thinking upside continuation. All right. I don't view this as a rally and, oh, they're building up a distribution to drop. I think when you're topping, the volatility stays high. I think when you're topping, you get these crisscrosses here. You get a lot of volatility, a lot of movement in red. Red is staying low now. Okay, you're not getting any kind of sharp retracements along the way. That goes to the volatility, but it also goes to the strength of the buyer still getting back above. Now, what I mentioned about I kept the trend, the momentum neutral, is I want to see this kind of tick back up like that and form a pivot low with price. We don't really have that yet. If we pull that off, they're both going to flip to positive instantly. Right, both the trend and the momentum. Now, again, if you switched yours from neutral to positive this week, I don't have a problem with that. And the reason I don't is because this didn't switch back to you didn't just pop up and then drop right back down. All right. And because you didn't do that, I think you have to you got to be thinking that this is actually pretty bullish the way this is playing out. Now, is it possible we could come down a little bit more? I would actually favor that. I would love to see this come down a little bit more. Why? Because I want to see that RSI 5 drop down under 50. I'd like to see the volatility drop down a little bit more. Now, again, we want to stay focused on, is it a monster bar? If it's a monster bar, then yeah, then my anticipatory thought, which is that we are actually prepping for another up move, is going to be wrong. And I'm okay with that. I don't need to really know right now because I can watch what's taking place. I know I don't really have an entry right now, and I'm going to go to the hourly to help with this. One of the other things that I like about what's taken place is we had this strong move to the upside, created by a dynamic move in ADX. Okay, and look at the strength of the MACD. We got some divergence and then it worked down to the zero line, but look at how it's hovering around the zero and look at how red DI has only caused a little pop here and the ADX is staying low. So what do we think? When this is strong and the sellers are weak, what's our bias? Our bias is to the upside. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, I personally kind of look at this. When I look at this chart, I'm sort of thinking I'd like to see this break through these highs. We've got a triple top up here. We did form reverse divergence here where this came down to the zero line, kind of undercut a little bit where this made a higher low. So I think this is set up. I'd like to see this come back up through these highs, and I think that would be actually a pretty solid short-term trading signal. Now, if it comes down a little bit more first, I'm okay with that, but we're going to need to hold these lows potentially to keep that hourly chart in place. Now, one thing that could take place, all right, and I'm just, as we're going through this, I'm kind of thinking this way. If we want to drop down and test these lines, we might have to be on the lookout for an undercut pattern, all right, where we undercut these key lows and then form the higher low test. So keep your eyes on that over the course of the next 2-3 days as trading goes on, and see if we can't get one of these signals to develop for a potential trade to the upside. All right, have a good long weekend, and we'll see you next time.